Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Aruth. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Laurie, and thank you for allowing us to be here today. I'm really excited to share Inge's story with all of you. She's a very humble woman. It took a long time for me to get to know all the ins and outs of the things that she experienced as a child growing up. But it's been a real blessing in my life, and it will be a blessing in yours once you finish watching the video, to have gotten to know her and to understand the experiences that she had and what has brought her to where she is today. She is a mother of two beautiful girls and a son. She's a grandmother, she's a great-grandmother. She has lots of hobbies. She's a lovely woman, so I encourage you to come up and say hello to her at the end of this. So what I'm going to do is I'll tell you a little bit about how the book came about, how the video and the book came about. I'm going to read the first chapter of the book, and then we'll show the video. The video is about 23 minutes long. So I met Inge 11 years ago. I was helping take care of her sister-in-law. She was married to Inge's brother Gerhard, and you'll hear more about Gerhard in the chapter that I read and also in the video. And that's how I got to know Inge. So I would bring Pat down to visit Inge, and Pat was showing early signs of dementia, and she would sit and she would listen, but she really didn't contribute too much to the conversation, so Inge and I would talk. And I knew that she had an interesting childhood. I knew that she was from another country. That's pretty much all I knew. So I started asking her questions about her life. And the more we talked, the more we cried, and the more I learned about her. And I discovered just how incredibly resilient she is. She's a remarkable woman. So the first chapter in this book that I will read to you captures a little bit of the difficulties that she experienced growing up. She was living in East Prussia at the time during World War II, and when the war broke out, the Russians came in and they took over Königsberg, which is the part of East Prussia that she was living in. It was part of Germany and is now, to this day, part of Russia. They came in, and the German people who were still living there were basically used for slave labor and were allowed to starve to death. And Inge and her brother, her younger brother Gerhard, would go around and they would dig through trash. They would look for chicken bones to suck on. They would look for carcasses of herring lying on the ground that they could eat. They would look for potato peels. She talks about how she cooked potato peels in car oil and fed them to herself and her brother and sister. That's how desperate they were. She actually told me once that her mother was very upset about how distended her stomach had become and how skinny her legs had become. So they were starving. And she did something incredibly brave when she was about 9 years old. She hopped on a train to escape that area and escape the starvation that they were experiencing. And she made her way to Lithuania. In her 9-year-old brain, she thought she was doing something to help her family. She was going to go to what they called the land of bread. She knew that there was bread in this other country. She was going to go to the land of bread, bring food back for her family, and help her mother and her brother and her sister. Her father had died during the war. Well, she ended up getting, not stuck, but she ended up staying in Lithuania. She came back, looked for her family, couldn't find them, went back again. And she was in Lithuania for 15 years, wandering through the streets, the countryside, knocking on doors, looking for food and shelter and just anything to stay alive, all by herself as a 9-year-old girl. So that's a little bit of the backdrop of this story. So the more I got to know Inge and her story, the more I was compelled to have it memorialized. I asked a friend if he would record her story so that I could give the audio to her family so that that could be passed down from generation to generation. And when he did, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but I ended up taking that audio version. We crafted some narration to go around it because the story wasn't completely linear, so we crafted some narration to give context to the story, and from there I added some images and created this video. So I'll show the video, but first I'd like to read the chapter to kind of set the stage. This is chapter 1 of the book. I'm working with a literary agent right now. She has the book on submission to several publishing companies. We're very excited to finally be at this point. Thought this day would never come, so hopefully at some point you'll be able to purchase the book. I think if I sit close to the speaker with the mic, it's going to be a problem. Okay. All right. So this is chapter 1 of the book. Inge lay curled in a ball under the threadbare woolen blanket, trying hard not to move. The wooden floorboards of the open train car dug into her bony side. She was situated between 2 Lithuanian women whose legs acted as a corral, holding her tightly in one spot. They had been selling eggs and butter on the black market in Königsberg and were heading home. It was hardly a lucrative business. The ladies were bundled up to protect themselves from the chilly temperatures, but they were poorly dressed. They wore tattered scarves and shoes made of wooden soles tied to their feet with rags. However, in spite of their misfortunate state, they didn't hesitate to help Inge. Inge had been darting around, under and around the train cars to avoid detection by the Russian soldiers who lurked nearby. Even though she was small for 9 years old and the train was so expansive, it had been challenging for her to find a place to hide. She happened to look up and noticed the women watching her. They were older than Mama, but had kind eyes just like hers, and sat on the floor facing the back of the train in order to protect themselves from the wind. One of them glanced around to make sure the coast was clear, while the other lifted the blanket that was spread across their laps and gestured for Inge to crawl under. She didn't need to be invited twice. In a flash, she was nestled between their warm bodies. Not wanting to attract the attention of the Russian guards who were prowling around in search of German stowaways, the Lithuanian women spoke in low, muffled voices. Anyone caught attempting to sneak onto a train would be dragged off and whipped. One of the women used the term volkatukai several times and gently patted Inge's hip as she talked. Inge could sense the pity in their voices, but wasn't able to understand what they were saying. She couldn't speak Lithuanian, not yet anyway. As she lay in a fetal position, Inge did her best to remain still, afraid that even the slightest movement would signal her presence. Fear gripped her as she recalled how the guards reacted to the discovery of a German stowaway. Other children were also playing this dangerous game in an attempt to leave the city to find food. "Go now," they would whisper to each other when the soldiers had turned their backs. Occasionally, someone would slip and fall or move too slowly and get caught. Punishment would be meted out and was entirely dependent upon the mood of the soldier, but the beatings were usually severe enough to dissuade a repeat of the offense. Just a few weeks before, Inge had been roaming around the train cars, weighing her options for escape. She stumbled upon an overturned train car with half-frozen, rotting potatoes spilling out of it and could hardly believe her good luck. The last time she had potatoes was when she had found some discarded peelings in the trash that littered the sidewalks and fried them in car oil for herself and her siblings. They tasted like harsh chemicals, but they gobbled it down. She was so captivated by the sight of this treasure trove that she forgot for a moment that she needed to be careful. Inge crouched down and placed the bucket that she had been carrying to collect food on the ground. Suddenly, she felt the sharp heel of a boot to her back and went tumbling face first into the pile of potatoes. As she turned to look up, she saw the angry red face of a Russian soldier dressed in warm winter attire with a gun slung over his shoulder. "Get out of here, you little Hitlerite," he spat at her. Inge scrambled to her feet and ran off, leaving her bucket behind. Lying on the floor of the train car, Inge could still feel the pulsing pain of the welt on her lower back. Then she heard the crunch of gravel as footsteps approached. She caught her breath and instinctively squeezed her eyes shut as if her inability to see would somehow improve her hidden state. The Russians stopped next to their car and grunted a question. After many years of living under Soviet occupation, the women understood what was being asked of them. "Kaunas," one of them replied, confirming their destination. The soldier didn't notice the small lump that lay between them. Suddenly, she heard a familiar cry, "Inge!" It was Gerhard. She didn't realize her little brother had followed her. What was he thinking, calling out her name like that? She had not confided in him about her plans. Although he had become friendly with the Russian soldiers during the past year and a half of their occupation, being found loitering around the trains was an unforgivable sin, especially for boys. "Get out of here," Inge silently willed him, every muscle in her body taut. "Go home and wait for Mama." Suddenly, she heard the shrill sound of a whistle piercing the air. All around, people were shouting, and scurrying boots made scuffing noises as a chase ensued. The soldier at their car quickly ran to join them. Inge's breath caught in her throat. "They'll get Gerhard," she thought, stricken with fear. Her eyes began to sting from tears as she listened to the far-off sounds and tried hard to control her urge to leap out from beneath the blanket and rescue her brother. However, she knew she couldn't be of any help, and it would only end badly for her. Then came cries of disappointment. "They got away," one soldier yelled to the rest. Inge didn't know who they were, but she knew it meant Gerhard was safe. She let out a breath that she realized she had been holding in the whole time, and her body relaxed. "Don't do that again, you dumb boy," she thought to herself. As relief washed over Inge, she began to notice the familiar itch. Her family had been living in squalor, and over time, lice had infested her hair and burrowed into the open sores on her skin. They were terribly uncomfortable and nearly impossible to kill. She and Gerhard would spend several hours picking the insects off themselves and dropping them into a glass jar. The vermin were the size of sesame seeds and would writhe around endlessly before finally dying a day or two later. Another glass jar held urine they would use to wash and disinfect their skin in an attempt to rid themselves of the lice. The tingling sensation covered her whole body, but she knew she couldn't scratch. This opportunity was too important. It was a hurried encounter when the women welcomed her onto the train, so they weren't aware of Inge's condition. She simply looked like a filthy, starving waif. If they had suspected that she was also infected with contagious parasites, they would have thought twice about their hospitality. So that's the first 4 pages of the book. Kind of sets the stage for where she was at that point in her life when she made this trip. And then the video is going to capture the rest of her story, as they say. Once the video's over, in about 23 minutes, we will have time for questions. So if any of you have any questions about her story or about what was going on in that time period or that place in the world, we're happy to answer them.
In the spring of 1945, the Allies, led by the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, defeated Germany, thus ending World War II. Countless books have been written about the unimaginable suffering and tragic deaths of tens of millions of people during the war. Many stories, however, remain untold. One such story is that of the orphaned East German children, known as wolf children. When the Soviets conquered the German territory of East Prussia, German nationals began to evacuate. Later, they were forcibly expelled. Families were ripped apart and parents were separated from children. Many died. Wolf children is the name given to a certain group of orphaned German children who were left entirely on their own to survive at the end of World War II. They were called wolf children because of their wolf-like wanderings as they scrounged for food and searched for shelter. The total number of wolf children can only be estimated. Some say there were upwards of 25,000 of them roaming the woods and swamps of East Prussia and Lithuania. This is the story of one of those children.
My name is Inge. I was born October 6, 1935. I was born in East Germany. The city is called Königsberg. And I lived there through the war.
Königsberg was the former capital city of East Prussia. It is now called Kaliningrad, Russia. Königsberg was located on the southeast corner of the Baltic Sea and was the easternmost large city in Germany. The city was heavily damaged during World War II. Few traces of the former Königsberg remain today.
Needless to say, at one time I remember that we were shifted out to the country, but then for some reason we ended up back in the city again.
Inge was the oldest child and grew up with a younger brother and sister. Her father was in the military and also did odd jobs.
I remember him fixing the aluminum pot, fixing a pair of shoes, so I guess trying to make ends meet. But that's all I know, and he did go work doing something on a farm.
Inge led a happy life in Germany until World War II broke out.
I did go to school first. Second grade was a little bit interrupted. Not that I minded, I kind of liked not having to go to school. But then the third year was no good. I never finished. I then even never began, really. It was just in and out, and the sirens and the bombs and everything else.
Her father became sick during the war, and in 1943 was sent home to die. Destruction was everywhere, and there was no medical care for those who were injured or ill.
So then he got sent home, but by then I heard him talking that there was no more doctors or hospital. Everything was already bombarded out. So he had to stay home and die at home. She did. My mother wouldn't let us go into the room he was laying in.
During this time, Inge's mother was forced to go to work to provide for the family. In the morning, she would leave each of the children with a small piece of bread to last until she returned. Leaving their younger sister at home, Inge and her brother would spend the day scavenging for food. Inge was only 9 years old.
So my brother and I, we were going looking for potato peels that somebody throw out, pick some bones, chew on those, stay by a bakery. I remember this bakery, they used to cut up little pieces and sometimes give it to us kids. There'd be a bunch of kids waiting, a piece of bread. When the Germans were still controlling, they gave us some food, but everything was rationed. You couldn't have a lot of stuff, but bread was still there, and they give you some kind of a stamp, so you use your stamps after you've done.
In 1944, Königsberg was decimated by 2 British air raids that dropped bombs which destroyed buildings and wreaked havoc in people's lives.
It was bombing all the time. The tyrants would be hauling and bombings be falling. So there was no school. There was nobody there. Everybody hid in basements, in big buildings and stuff. And then some of the buildings crumbled in. The people in those basements had to die. I heard them saying that people ate each other. They were desperate for something to eat, so I guess they ate each other to stay alive for a little bit longer.
The horrors of war continued.
Nighttime would be getting up. The tyrants would ring or howl or whatever, and then we all have to go down the basement and shiver as kids, be waking up. Running from one basement to another. I remember having wet blankets over, and one time I remember wearing a mask. The smoke, the air is like, you couldn't see the sun, it was all polluted.
The Battle of Königsberg was one of the last battles in the war. It started in late January 1945 when the Soviets surrounded the city.
You never know when the bomb's gonna, but they mainly did, like bridges, factories, and all the important things for a country to run. Hospitals, everything that would hurt a country, that's what they did. And when Americans started, to help out, that's when really all hell broke loose. Bad. There was non-stop. And then after that, the war was over.
On April 9, 1945, after 4 days of violent warfare, Soviet forces captured the city. Food was scarce, and the German people of Königsberg were starving.
But then the Russians took over. They took over the country. We were desperate. One time, these people found a young horse on the side, so they all were fighting for a piece of the meat. And I didn't get any. I was too late. And so, guess what? All the people that ate it, they all died. It was contaminated.
Inge and others resorted to scavenging.
And if some Russian guy would be eating a herring, we're all waiting for the head and the bones to pick it up when he throws it away.
They begged for food.
I had a can, a good-sized can, about like a coffee can size, and go from door to door to see if they have any leftovers. So sometimes they give you a little bit something, sometimes not.
And they stole.
One time at this market, you're walking around to see what you can steal. So these two guys are talking, and there was a couple pieces of butter. And they're talking to each other, and I walk by, and I walk by again. What am I gonna do? What if I just take that? I did. I took the piece of butter. I started to run, and it was slippery and wet, winter time. I fell over, the butter fell ahead of me. I looked back, nobody saw me. I call that good luck. Then I went back and I stole a piece of bread too. To have a piece of bread.
By June of 1945, the Soviets began rounding up Germans and putting them in camps. They were forced to walk hundreds of miles with no food or water. Many did not survive. It is estimated that 15 million Germans were brutally driven from their homes.
Then the Russians would take a horde of people, horde of us, and they on horses, and we all had to walk. Anybody that didn't make it, they kicked them to the side and let them die. The Russians separated us. They took a lot of kids and put us like behind fence with somebody with guns around watching us.
Concentration camps were reused as detention facilities for ethnic Germans. Men were captured and used as forced labor. More than half died in captivity. Women and children were forced into other camps. Inge was entirely on her own and didn't understand what was going on.
Once they came, they gathered everybody. But then after a while, I don't know what they did with the grown-ups. It was only women, after the war. There was no men. So they gathered all of us, and some people didn't make it. I don't remember giving any food. And I don't know where we ended up. My mother wasn't there. I don't know how. I don't even know how it happened. So the grown-up maybe get separated from the kids. And so we was kept in captivity. But when the guys there that were supposed to be watching us, maybe they deliberately let us go, who knows. We escaped and we ran away, some of us, but everybody on their own,
Inge had heard there was food and relative safety in Lithuania. She and another child escaped from the camp and were able to sneak onto a train with the help of 2 Lithuanian women who themselves were very poor but had traveled to Germany to bring food to those in need.
So those 2 ladies put a blanket on top of us, so we get to go. We didn't know where we're going. Somewhere where there's bread. And then we ended up in Kaunas. So there I was alone, like a lot of kids alone, and I wasn't the only one.
Separated from her mother, brother, and sister, tired, hungry, and still just a child, Inge made the brave decision to return to Germany in search of her family.
At some point I went back looking to find my mother. I went there where I left where we lived, and I looked there and I found some people that I recognized, I knew, and they didn't know. So I said, you know what? There's no food here. I'm going back on the train again.
Getting out of Germany was not easy. The trains were heavily guarded, and any German found getting on them was captured.
I know they're gonna catch us and put us back again. So when the train stops, us kids go around and, hiding from the people that are gonna come around and check. And when the train stops going again, I be jumping on it again. I don't know where I'm going again. Stupid, huh? It doesn't make much sense. As a 9 and 10-year-old, you don't know better.
Wolf children who reached Lithuania by train were called footboard travelers because they would jump on the steps of a rail car as the train was departing and ride on the outside.
So I ended up getting on this train on the steps outside. The train stopped a couple times, so another time by the next stop I almost fell off, I fell asleep. It was nighttime. So anyway, I don't know how I knew to get off there. Maybe I talked with someone else on the train, and I ended up in Lithuania again, which made me happy.
Life in Lithuania was not easy. Inge was forced to go from place to place and take on work in exchange for food and shelter.
So then I started wandering off just go and ask for something to eat. Sometimes people feel sorry, they want to keep you, give you overnight. Sometimes they want you to, help a little. I was young and I was small, I was told. So digging potatoes and help them pick up potatoes, do little things like that.
She learned to survive.
And I'll go again, look and see, okay. Maybe I'll go in the afternoon, I start asking if I could sleep overnight. And they give you a stack of hay and then you sleep on that, give you a meal to eat. So then I did that all summer. You learn to save yourself. Maybe I dig a potato out, make a little fire, and I learned to cut the potato in half, scrape it inside out, and I put it back in and then bake it. But then they caught on to it, so I'm not supposed to take the potato. So then I had to stop.
For almost 15 years, Inge relied on the kindness of strangers.
I stayed in many places. I can't even remember all of them.
Those who helped the German children survive had to hide their efforts from the Soviet authorities in Lithuania.
Anything that you tell them about that you're against their communism or against Russian, or you couldn't even sing a song that has words that they didn't go for. So everything was strict, forbidden. So I stayed there 4 years, but it was hard.
Soviet rulers did not allow for the adoption of German children. Lithuanians risked severe treatment by authorities if they were found to be sheltering wolf children. Out of fear of being deported to Siberia, often those who took in German children prohibited them from speaking German, and many German children's names were changed.
They changed my name is Inge. They changed my name in Lithuania to Janina. They didn't like my name.
It's clear that much like not understanding the absence of men in the concentration camps, Inge is still unaware of the grave reasons her name was changed. She is, however, acutely aware of how fortunate she is to have survived.
It's a miracle I'm alive. It is just a plain old miracle. When I think about it, my God.
Inge lived in Lithuania between the ages of 9 and 24. During that time, she encountered much kindness and generosity. However, as a young woman on her own, she also had some terrible experiences, sometimes at the hands of men she trusted.
Being a girl was hard.
When Inge was 21, she met a woman whose sister had recently married a German and was moving to West Germany. After having been separated for years, Inge was suddenly presented with the opportunity to be reunited with her mother.
My sister's going to Germany, she says. She married a German, she's going to Germany, she's moving there. So she says, maybe you can find your mother, Maybe you can get in touch with my sister and see what they can help you with. So that's how it started.
Inge learned that efforts were being made by the German Red Cross to reunite wolf children in Lithuania with their family members in Germany. Unfortunately, this was only an option for those who were old enough to remember their names and where they had come from. Younger children who didn't know who they were usually stayed with Lithuanian families because it was forbidden for them to return to Germany.
At that time, the Russians and the Germans had some kind of a agreement that if any family, many kids were younger, they don't know who they are. They probably stayed there. But if you knew your last name and you remember anything, which I did.
With the help of friends who could read and write, Inge filled out the requisite paperwork and traveled alone to submit her application. Shortly afterwards, she received word from the Red Cross.
It didn't take that long. I got this letter and I said, now what? I don't know what it says. I forgot German.
Inge sought out the local priest to read what was in the letter.
So I'm running down like crazy. I remember the feet didn't even reach the ground. I was going so fast. Yeah, he says, you have a mother and you have a brother and a sister.
Inge was overjoyed. She learned that her mother and sister were living in West Germany. Years earlier, they had paid someone to take them there safely. In the 5 years immediately following World War II, over 15 million refugees fled Soviet-occupied Eastern Europe to the west. The number of people who died during flight and expulsion is estimated at anywhere from 500,000 to 2 million.
There was a time, you paid some money and they take you to the woods overnight, then that's how they ended up slipping into West Germany.
Her brother was in the process of returning to Germany after also spending 15 years in Lithuania. During all that time, neither he nor Inge knew that the other one was there.
When I started, he was already back in Germany, this time in West Germany. Then I found out I had a brother, he lived in Lithuania too. We didn't know.
It took about a year for everything to be processed, but then in 1959, after 15 years of separation, Inge was reunited with her mother.
Oh my God, I cried for days. I was so happy. My mother and I was looking at each other and crying because I didn't understand the German anymore and she didn't know any Lithuanian.
She learned that her sister had gotten married and had a baby, and her brother was living in an apartment by himself. And now, once again, her life was changed dramatically. After wandering for years on her own, staying with many different families, doing odd jobs in return for room and board, Inge was again living with her family. However, she was forced to relearn her native language and find a paying job in order to survive.
So I didn't know, how the German system worked. Then I got a job in a chocolate factory. So I worked there, but I guess I told them that I'm gonna move to America. They let me go, but I didn't work again.
Inge and her brother traveled to Lithuania to visit with the family who had helped reunite her with her mother. While she was there, she learned of a Lithuanian man living in America who was looking for a Lithuanian wife. Due to her limited prospects, Inge agreed to meet him.
I didn't have nothing. I didn't have no money, and there's no room, there's no chance of getting an apartment, and one thing led to another. I'm thinking, what the heck?
After knowing one another for only a few days, the new couple agreed to get married.
So they introduced us. I was very shy, always very shy.
6 months later, Inge arrived in the United States and joined her husband.
Well, I come over here. We don't know each other, really. He rented an apartment on our 3rd floor, and all these blinds there. Jesus, I feel like I'm in jail, and I'm crying.
Amazingly, Inge and her husband were married for close to 50 years.
Took a little time, but he was a nice guy. Almost made 50 years married. Lasted a lifetime. I think it's determination. You don't get married to get divorced.
Now in the United States, and with only a 2nd grade education, Inge once again had to learn a new language.
And I came over here, again, the new language. I didn't know a word. Nothing. Nobody. I've been replanted too many times.
Inge watched television and credit Sesame Street with teaching her English. She and her husband lived a modest life with their 3 children, but her experiences stayed with her.
I think it affected me a lot. I'm a good person. I hurt when I see somebody hurt. When I see something bad happen, I feel. I think it has a lot to do with the life that you've been living or through.
Not all wolf children have stories with happy endings. Of the estimated 25,000 wolf children, about 5,000 reached Lithuania, and only a few hundred survived. None of these events were reported in the press because the official Communist Party line in Russia was that there were no Germans in those areas. They only became known to the public after 1990, when Lithuania regained independence from the Soviet Union and the wolf children were discovered. Almost 100 still live there today. Since the early 1990s, wolf children have fought for German citizenship. They have their own association and are still hopeful that they will one day be able to learn the fate of their relatives, obtain German citizenship, and reunite with their families. In recent years, the Lithuanian government has granted compensation to those who suffered as a result of World War II, so wolf children are eligible to receive a small pension. However, in German laws, the wolf children are not mentioned. Since 1992, a memorial has stood in Lithuania commemorating the thousands of East Prussian boys and girls who lost their parents at the end of the war.
I'm just a lucky person, that's all. It wasn't meant to be yet. My time wasn't there yet. People play the lotteries. I would not be happy to have that kind of winning, so I don't play that. I play lucky for life. That's more, you know.
It's a good saying, isn't it? Lucky for life. I love that. Did you play the lottery?
You want to put your face everybody? We always see you now.
I see you.
Yeah, almost
Hi,
90.
everybody.
Still has that same beautiful smiling face. Before we take any questions, I just wanted to clarify something about the concentration camp piece. So this video was made almost 10 years ago, and I've learned a lot more about Inge and about history and about that part of the world in those past 10 years. And one of the things that I was always confused about was Inge's claim that she had been detained in a concentration camp. What I did learn was that she and her mother and brother and sister, along with basically all the Germans who were living in Königsberg at the time, were marched out of the city, and then Russians came in because there were Russian residents who followed the Russian soldiers into Königsberg, and they took over all the housing that was still standing. So when the Germans were let back into the city, they were put to work, and Inge and her mother and her brother and sister were forced to live in these bombed out structures, and they would literally go from building to building to try to find safety and shelter. So they did go back to the apartment that they had been living in, that she grew up in, because ironically that building was still standing, that part of the city was still standing, but there was a Russian family already living there. So she wasn't kept in a camp at that point, but when she was in Lithuania, her first time going to Lithuania, she was captured by the local authorities and she was placed in a camp with other children, and she escaped from that camp. So just a little clarification about that particular part of the video. And I spelled Gerhardt's name wrong on the first slide. So forgive me. But I wanted to know if anybody had any questions for me, for Inge, for her children. Yes?
It's an incredible story. How can you not be, want revenge or, it's just incredible.
I've known her for 11 years and she's never expressed an ounce of bitterness. It's remarkable.
It was hard for her to get mad at us growing up too. So she's always been a nice an overly nice person, and everywhere she goes, she is loved. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Did you want to answer that?
Why are you always nice and don't get mad and want?
Why are you not resentful of your?
I'm forgiving. I don't hold grudges.
Yes.
You all cry every time you hear your mother's story.
We hold
We were
it back.
watching
Yes,
it.
yes, yes. It's hard. I think for years we were trying to, even Andy wanted, he's like, I want to write a book about your mother, but it was so hard to get the story out of her, because before she got so far, she would break down, so we'd back off, right? So I think Kristen and having, having somebody come in and do those interviews, it wasn't one interview, it was several, right? To go
Years,
deeper and deeper. And then trying to trace back that history, because she was so young, like what had happened was not really out there. So we're thankful that we could have that now, but, so many years we've often wondered, like, what happened? Like, we didn't know. We had no idea. Yeah.
One of the challenges in writing Inge's story was, first of all, getting all the information out of her and then making sure that I was able to back up that information with reliable sources. Not that she wasn't a reliable source, but for example, the concentration camp claim. I wanted to make sure that I had, firsthand documentation of whatever had transpired. So digging into history was challenging, but what made it more challenging was that everything was destroyed in that part of the world.
Yes.
So it's really, really hard to find anything about that part of the world. Several books have been written which were very helpful for me, historical types of books, and helped obviously substantiate the things that Inge shared with me. Yes?
What happened to her brother and her sister? Did they stay in Lithuania when she came here, or stay in Germany?
My brother came to West Germany before me, so he found the Red Cross. Somebody also helped him through the Red Cross, and he found my mother and sister, and me. So he was able to leave earlier than me.
But he ended up in the United States, right?
Yeah. Then when I got married, I had him come over.
So he actually lived in Abington. We lived in
yes,
Brockton.
I remember.
But then your sister,
My sister, she wouldn't, she never came, no.
she stayed in Germany.
She stayed in Germany.
With your mother.
Yeah.
And our mother would come over on summers. We'd rotate between our brother's house and my house. So that was our Oma that used to come over. Yeah, and stay with us for the summer.
But her sister died.
Oma.
Her sister died young, and they attribute that to the poor nutrition that she received as a child. Somebody else had a hand up. Yes.
Did your mother teach you to be strong and forgiving? Was your mother like that?
I really didn't know my mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, she would tell her, when she would give her the bread, that you can't stay in bed, you'll die, you need to get up and go look for food.
Okay.
So she did
She
have
taught you
that.
how to survive.
And her mother was in World War I and in World War II.
And her mother was used as part of that labor that I was talking about earlier. So she would leave in the morning. Inge and her brother and sister would be in this bed in this bombed out building, and she would be gone for 14 hours a day, every single day. And her wage was a hard piece of bread.
Yeah.
That was it. That's all she had for the entire family.
Yeah, so my mother was the oldest, then her brother Gerhard, and then her sister. Yeah.
Are they still living?
No.
Was Prussia originally a different country than Germany?
Prussia has changed hands so many times. It was occupied by Poland at one
Yeah.
point, Russia. I mean, it was just, it was kind of all over the place. That particular section, I think it was originally part of Poland, and then Germany took it over. I read a book about this thick on that part of the world
I tried
many
to
years
too.
ago. And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. We think of war in other parts of the world. We don't really think of war in that part of the world. And yet that was constant. There was constant fighting in that part of the world. And borders were constantly changing.
Yeah, ironically, I think we did like the 23andMe, and I don't have any German in me. When it comes out, it says it's all Lithuanian or like East, like that part of it. But then you're like, all right, well, she was German, she was a German citizen, so I kind of attribute it to like that countryside changed hands and parts of it between Poland and Russia and Germany. That there's probably just a mixture in that space, so we're still curious to find out what's before that. We don't know either, because it's hard to kind of even trace that back because of the lack of records. Yeah.
And Königsberg was called an oblast, or oblast. It's a a geographically separate part of a country. So if you noticed on the map, it was Germany, and then Poland, and then this Königsberg Oblast. So Germany, even though it was part of Germany, it wasn't attached physically to Germany.
Yes. What did your husband do for work when he came over here? What was his occupation?
My husband, he was a machine worker.
Machinist.
A textile, yeah.
And fixed cars. And
Oh, yeah.
like he did a lot of odd jobs too, right?
He was a
As
busy
she did too, yeah. Yeah.
What was your favorite job over here?
Our favorite job?
Yeah.
I did everything. I worked for TJ Maxx, I'm sure you later. I waited 22, 23 years. Then I worked, I don't know,
Hospital, cafeteria,
hospital cafeteria.
the donut shop.
The donut shop.
That was the best. That was our favorite one. When we got to go and pick out a donut.
Well, she did stitching too.
She was a stitcher and a machine, yeah.
Did you always live in New England, around this area?
Yeah, New England. Mhm.
We grew up in Brockton, and then when I moved to Raynham, she moved as well.
I grew up in Brockton. Where did you live?
The north side.
We lived up Cary Hill.
Oh, we were
yeah.
kind of closer to the Raymond School down that side, yeah. Yep.
Did you suffer from nightmares from everything that you've been through?
I didn't hear it.
Did you suffer from nightmares from everything you've been through?
Sometimes, yeah. It never really goes away. The least little thing would remind you.
Right.
Sort of makes you sad.
And she would never show that in our life. We've never seen her.
That's part of the reason.
Well, you know, you learn to survive.
Going through all that, what was the most surprising, positive thing that happened to you?
The husband.
He was 15 years older.
Wow, really?
He was God sent.
He was a godsend.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
You must have a very strong.
Do you
faith.
remember your father?
Very little,
Yeah.
very little.
Because he died in your home,
Yeah.
and you weren't allowed to go in the room when he was
He
dying.
probably wasn't decent. He didn't, my mother probably didn't want us to see him.
To see
like
that,
that.
right.
I just wanted to know, before the age of 9, when all these things happened to you, did you ever have a memory of your family that helped sustain you through all this, a happy memory?
Did you have a happy memory of your family that helped sustain you through everything that you went through?
Well, I remember when my father, after he died, it must have been in the wintertime because Christmas came and my mother decorating this little tree there with some cotton things on it. Those days they had the real candles.
Yeah.
To it.
That wasn't got
Yeah. I remember us crying all that.
But also, what about when you used to ride the bike when you could go meet your father at the train station, right?
Yeah.
She was so little, but he'd have a bike and he'd let her ride the bicycle home from the train station. So there were stories like that.
Oh,
that
you
we
and
remember.
your father?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you still speak 3 languages? Well, I know you speak English, but can you still
Yes.
speak Lithuanian and German?
And
Fluently?
Russian.
And
Yes.
Russian? You speak 4 languages now?
No.
He's too humble.
No, I mean, she's rusty because she doesn't practice it, so like German will probably be like Lithuanian will probably be the next strongest one, then German, and then a little bit of, like, she'll know if you're speaking Russian or something else, right? Yeah.
A little there, a little.
That's right, yeah.
Maybe you could say something in each of those languages. How do you say thank you in each of those languages?
Oh, Dankeschön, it's in German.
Yeah.
Ačiū is in Lithuanian.
Achalabai?
Ačiū.
Is it achalabai? Thank you very much.
Yeah, ačiū labai means thanks a lot.
Yeah. And what about Russian? Do you know?
No.
There wasn't anything to thank
No.
about.
Maybe a dirty word.
That's what they usually teach you when you go to a different country. They teach you the dirty words.
How about goodbye? See you later.
When do you expect the book to be published?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I am working with a literary agent, and this is all brand new territory to me. I've never written a book before. It's been very exciting and a very rewarding journey, as you can imagine. The process is to pitch to a literary agent, and then the literary agent will take you on and then pitch to editors at publishing companies. So I have a literary agent secured, and she is working on pitching literally as we speak within the past 2 weeks. She's been pitching the book to publishing companies. So within a year, maybe?
I would think PBS.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
PBS.
Fascinating.
Can't imagine.
They would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the book first and then the media comes after.
Okay. Let us know.
I know.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Somebody way back.
Did Inge or you girls ever go back as adults to visit that area?
No,
No,
it's
it's
all
Russian,
Russia.
it's
Not
Russian
Lithuania.
occupied.
I'm scared to go under the Russians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, as you heard, until
Just
1990,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Lithuania was under the Russian rule.
Right.
We couldn't even get father's records for my father back, and then Germany, where she grew up, is no longer Germany, that's Russia. But we have gone back to Germany to visit her mother and family when she was still alive.
Right.
Couple of questions in the back.
Yes.
What was your first impression of the US when you came here?
Besides being in prison?
Yeah. What was your first impression of the
Yeah.
U.S. when you came here?
Oh, I liked it a lot, right, to start out with.
What did you like about it?
The people are nice,
The bread?
but I didn't speak,
Yeah.
so it was hard.
Yeah.
I learned one word, no smoking on the plane.
Did you smoke?
No.
But you would talk about how the Americans were, you always expected them, or the Germans always expected the Americans to come in and save them when you were under Soviet occupation.
Oh, then, oh my God. It seemed like everything was shiny in America, you know, clean and shiny and beautiful.
Yeah, I think what I read was, during war, the residents there are kind of just victims as well, and they were not allowed to leave, even though people knew the Russians were coming in to take over, they were not allowed to leave. And I read another book where people would try to pay because there was like a river you needed to get across and anything they could to try to get out, but they were literally locked in, so they wouldn't let them leave, even if they were able to.
Well, the politicians left.
Yeah.
Politicians left, and the residents were not allowed to leave.
Right.
So that's what you're alluding to.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there an international organization of wolf children? Because this is a chapter of history that I know nothing about, and I volunteer at BCC's Holocaust and Genocide Center, and we try, one of the topics that we cover is trying to convey that the victims were not only the Jews, the victims were homosexuals, physically handicapped, mentally handicapped, and this would certainly be a group that we would want to learn about it and talk about when we do workshops for teachers.
That's an excellent point. I knew nothing about German wolf children when I started talking with Inge, and I remember the day that I discovered that term, and I called her and I said, "Are you sitting down? Have you ever heard this term? It's Volkatukai was what the Lithuanians called you, but Wolfskinder is the German word for wolf children." And she had never heard either wolf children or Wolfskinder before. She just knew that she was a child who had lost her family. To my knowledge, Inge is the only German wolf child in the United States. I don't know of any others. I've never heard of any others. I'm in touch with an author. I've been in touch with her for a number of years now, who wrote kind of a picture book about different wolf children in Lithuania, because they do have an organization in Lithuania, But again, I made this video 10 years ago, and I'm not certain how many of those people are still with us. So they had an organization, as the film said, they were looking to seek German citizenship, find out what happened to their families, find out about their roots, and I don't believe many of them were successful, if any at all, because the unfortunate thing is they didn't know their names, they didn't know who their parents were, they didn't know where they came from. Inge was just old enough to have all of that information. So that's a little bit of a roundabout way to answer your question, but in the United States there is no organization. Yes?
I'm just wondering if you found in your, it sounded like all the kids sort of tried to figure how to do things on their own. Did you find older people who were nurturing, who helped you along during that time when you were one of the wolf children? Or were you all on your own completely?
They in Lithuania, you mean?
Yes.
They didn't have much either. They had a poor life. So, you know, they would have to take their piece of bread and give it to someone else. They think about it, you know.
And take care of their own kids.
Yeah.
I think also when you're reading this, they would take her in because they needed someone to do the potato digging.
Oh,
They
yeah.
needed, like everybody was off and they needed somebody to help or take care of the children, so they brought her in as a worker and gave her room and board. So if there was a need, she was unoffensive, hard worker situation, so, yeah.
I don't want to give away too much about the book because I want you all to buy it. But there is a chapter in there about a mother and two young girls that she encountered. Were you going to say that?
Yeah.
That she encountered in Lithuania. And they were Germans and they had been displaced from their homeland as well. And she encountered them in Kaunas, which is the city that she ended up in Lithuania. And after walking around with them and the mother begging for food for herself and 3 young children, she finally took Inge aside and said, I can't do this anymore, you need to go off on your own. So that was really the only act of kindness that she experienced, otherwise she was entirely on her own. People would take her in, like Christina said, but she didn't have anyone to walk with her, help her, entirely on her own. It's remarkable. Yes?
You know, I grew up during the war too. Nothing was ever told to us about concentration camps and all of these things that went on. We didn't know about it. It's just after I was grown up, then it was when you started to learn about it. It's just unbelievable.
It is, yes, and you know, the point was made that this is such a little known part of history. I mean, not learning about concentration camps, that affected millions of people.
Right.
And this affected thousands of children, and we're just learning about it and just really beginning to understand it. So it is a tragedy. Any other questions?
I don't have a
Oh,
question.
yes.
I want to thank you. I can't imagine how hard this is to relive this, and it's so important for everybody.
Inspiration.
It is.
Yes.
Yes. You make us And we're going to have you back for a book sign when that.
So Inge's 90th birthday is October 6th. If you would like to send her a birthday card, I think you can send it care of Lori here, and one of us will obtain them from Lori.
Andy will get it.
Oh, Andy, of course, Andy, yes.
Hey, you know what? I think we should sing happy birthday! All right, let's go, you guys.
Wait, I want to record it.
Oh, all right, I'm waiting. All right, let's show Inge some love. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Inge. Happy birthday to you.
You okay if people come up and talk to you personally? That's okay?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you again for having us.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to come and say hello.